Hey everyone, Lukium here. This clip is a segment for a larger video where I dive into social media grifting, specifically looking at how it plays out in an online debate titled, "Is Democracy on the Ballot in 2024?" If you want to see the full breakdown with all the context and additional counter-arguments, check out the main video. You can find it in the card above or in the description. There, you see all the different ways that misinformation was spread throughout the debate. Now, if you agree with my take, please drop a like. Unfortunately, it seems like these kinds of videos are getting dislike bombed by those who support misinformation, so your like really helps the message reach more people. And if you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments and I'll see you there. After failing to make his case with Letitia James, AJW returns to Alvin Bragg, arguing that Bragg downgraded felonies at an unprecedented rate.
Now, I do believe, and I have presented evidence for the fact, that Alvin Bragg did charge Trump for political reasons. As I said, that Bragg, who has downgraded over half of felony charges, and by the way, this doesn't even count the dismissals in the cases that he just refuses to charge people, somehow found a way to upgrade the charges against Trump, again, for political reasons, so that he can say, look, he's a convicted felon based on me going outside of my pattern of behavior and upgrading charges because specifically he was talking about a political opponent named Donald J. Trump.
He presents a statistic claiming Bragg downgraded 52% of felony cases to misdemeanors, supposedly based on data from the Manhattan DA's office. Here's where things get really questionable. The statistic AJW uses is a direct copy and paste from a New York Post article from 2022 without any source citation in the video itself, though it can be found in the description. Strictly speaking, this is plagiarism, and someone with 2 degrees should know better. But even on a more charitable framework, this is pretty dishonest because it places the viewer in an information quagmire, if you will. Let me explain. Most viewers aren't going to pause the video and go search for a citation that may or may not exist elsewhere. Instead, they'll likely take for granted that the creator has done due diligence to use a trustworthy source. Ask yourself when was the last time that you found yourself in a similar situation and actually stopped to go look for the source. If you can remember such an instance, you're probably a freak of nature like me. Almost nobody does that. On the other hand, if you do put the source citation along with the video, it makes it very clear to the viewer where you're getting your information from. And should it be a questionable source, the viewer will take that into account immediately, without needing any further effort. And this is why it is so inherently dishonest, aside from it looking like plagiarism, not to directly cite the source along with the medium, whether it's a video or paper or whatever, when the information is being used. Anyone doing this, especially if they have any kind of formal education, is probably trying to mislead. Next, let's look more closely at what's being offered here. Again, the graphic has a relative reference to time, talking about the time since Bragg took office. So we have a beginning time, but no end time. Remember, this graphic is from November 2022. AJW makes no effort to clarify this in a video released almost 2 years later. A reasonable person would likely conclude that the statistic being offered covers all of Bragg's tenure, which is now almost 3 years as opposed to covering less than 1 year. Someone honest would never create a scenario where such a misleading conclusion can be made. Next, let's review a claim made earlier in the video.
In fact, the person who attributed this to Alvin Bragg was Cam, not me, and he was referring to a different quote. And you have to remember, this election was actually occurring in 2020 because Bragg was sworn in 2021.
AJW claims that Bragg ran for office in 2020 and took office in 2021. This is in fact not true. Bragg ran in 2021 and took office in 2022. You would think that someone who lives in New York, with 2 degrees in criminal justice, who ostensibly covers local crime for a living, who's making a video to
unambiguously defending my own honor,
would get the year right for the local prosecutor they're critiquing. It's hard to tell if this was abject incompetence or intentional dishonesty, but it surely seems mighty convenient. If you look at the actual data from the DA's office, you will see an increase in felony downgrading from 2020 to 2021. So, if a new DA had taken office in 2021, this would in fact suggest that this new DA had in fact downgraded felonies substantially more than their predecessor. On the other hand, if you had the year right, you might find yourself reaching the exact opposite conclusion, that whoever took over in 2022 downgraded felonies substantially less than their predecessor. Next, let's look at the source itself. If you're trying to convey that Bragg has such a terrible record downgrading felonies, why not source it directly from the Manhattan DA's office with current data when that's openly available to anyone? Why would you source statistics from a New York tabloid known for its biased political leanings instead? I have a few ideas why. but you go ahead and tell me what you think in the comments. Finally, let's look at the analysis itself, pretending that AJW did unquestionably use a stale article from a biased tabloid that seems to claim the opposite of reality rather than the current data from the original source in a way that an honest person with, say, 2 degrees in the relevant field might consider using. Even if the data supported AJW's claim that Bragg has a tendency to downgrade felonies rather than upgrade them, this doesn't necessarily map onto Trump's case. Your average Manhattan felony charge isn't for a repeat offender who has stolen from their own New York charitable foundation to further their political campaign, defrauded people throughout the country out of millions of dollars through their fake university that was ran from New York, and millions more in unpaid taxes from deflating the values of the assets of their New York-based organization. Then there's preponderance of evidence that he committed sexual assault in New York. On top of it all, the person then falsifies business records in New York to cover up payments to a porn star and a Playboy model so they wouldn't go public about his extramarital affairs with him as he ran for president. No, Bragg's decision to upgrade Trump's charges isn't inconsistent with his record. Trump's case is a complete outlier, not something you'd compare to an average New York felony. And nobody with an average amount of intelligence or integrity would ever, under any circumstance, try to say so. And this, my friends, in my opinion, is the creme de la creme, the filet mignon, AJW's masterpiece in dishonesty. Good job unequivocally proving to everyone how much honor you have.